Greetings, Rescue Dode here. Welcome to today's episode of Flashpoint, where essentially I share information and, of course, share my opinion on major events that are affecting countries in the MENA region and events that are creating instability above and beyond what the headlines tend to show. So I'm sticking again with the Sahel in this episode. And my talk today is about how Russia is replacing Wagner in Mali, a move that we argue was accelerated by Algeria and a move that's making the Tuareg nationalist quite concerned. So what's clear from the development is as Wagner withdraws from Mali, Russia is not stepping away, but it's reshaping its presence there under quite pressure from Algeria. The mercenaries are being replaced by the Africa Corps, a more organized state-run force that gives Moscow's backing to Bamako a new kind of weight. Now, for the Tuareg leadership located in the north, that shift has clearly set off alarm bells. That's because Wagner was brutal and chaotic, but this new force may be more capable and harder to resist. Faced with that reality, some rebel commanders are now cautiously talking to the jihadist groups operating in the region that include groups like GSIM. It's not an alliance, at least not yet, but in a region where loyalties are generally fragile and the threats keep multiplying, even a conversation says a lot. After more than 3 years on the ground, the Russian paramilitary group Wagner has announced its withdrawal through a short video shared on its usual Telegram channels. In the clip, Wagner claims it fulfilled its mission, namely fighting alongside Malian forces, eliminating thousands of militants, as well as their commanders, and of course helping restore state control over regional capitals. The group also says it helped shape a disciplined national army, one it claims is now capable of defending the country without outside support. That message didn't come as a surprise to those following the situation closely. In fact, rumors of a phased transition began circulating last year, and Wagner now is essentially confirming that its withdrawal started well before that announcement. According to the group, the full handover was completed in May. So what's replacing Wagner isn't a vacuum. It's a restructured force that's a source of concern for the Tuareg people. Over the course of 2024, personnel affiliated with the Russian Ministry of Defense began stepping in under a new banner, and that's called the Africa Corps. Now, this unit, unlike Wagner, operates more openly as part of Russia's formal military strategy on the African continent. In practical terms, that means Russia's presence in Mali isn't going anywhere. It's probably reinforcing. It's just taking a new form. The Africa Corps has already begun positioning itself through media channels, signaling continuity in the relationship between Bamako and Moscow. Now, for Mali's military-led government, the switch from Wagner to the Africa Corps appears to be less about ending cooperation and more about recalibrating it. Still, the situation in the country remains extremely tense. Attacks by armed groups continue, including a recent incident in Timbuktu, and entire regions, as you know, remain unstable. And while Wagner's departure video projects a certain sense of confidence, the reality on the ground tells a more complicated story. Now, there's also the question that hangs over this transition. What happens to the legacy Wagner leaves behind? Now, throughout its deployment, the group, as you know, faced repeated allegations of abuse, from extrajudicial killings to civilian massacres, often in joint operations with the very Malian army. Now, with the group now officially gone, it's unclear whether any effort will be made to investigate those incidents or whether they'll simply fade and vanish into the background of a changing military landscape. In this context, Algeria didn't make much noise about Wagner's presence in Mali, but that doesn't mean that it stayed passive. From the beginning, Algiers refused any formal contact with the Russian paramilitary group, even as some accused it of turning a blind eye or even quietly offering logistical routes. In truth, Algeria had long warned against any foreign mercenaries operating in the Sahel, including Wagner, and its position only hardened after the 2022 massacre in Moura. That event seemed to confirm what Algeria had feared. Wagner was not a stabilizing force, as many believed, but as a liability. Now, things came to a head in 2024 when Wagner, alongside with Malian forces, tried to push into the far north near Algeria's border in a region called Tizi-Ouzouatine. The first attempt ended in a disaster, with rebels and jihadists on one side dealing the coalition a major blow. A second effort later that year never even made it to the fight. Algerian intelligence had been tracking the movement closely by land using air and satellite assets, and its quiet pressure behind the scenes was enough to force a retreat. No confrontation, no shots fired, just a very clear line in the sand, essentially. From that moment on, the message from Algiers became harder to ignore. Russia was warned that Wagner's presence in Mali had reached essentially its limit. Meanwhile, Algeria began reinforcing its own alliances, welcoming senior U.S. military officials and strengthening cooperation with Moscow came with sort of its own terms. By early 2025, Wagner was being phased out. Now, the group's departure may have been framed as routine, but behind it, it was a slow and deliberate strategy shaped in no small part by Algeria's quiet but firm hand. Now, let's shift to the Tuaregs. Now, in a voice message intercepted by a French newspaper, a Tuareg leader, Al-Ghabas Agatala, says he's spoken with jihadi groups GSIM. That's the jihadist coalition operating in the North Mali. No formal deal, at least not from what he says, but there's clearly an understanding being tested, right? We spoke, he says, we're not fighting each other, at least for now, he adds, and that's sort of the tone that we're capturing from those discussions. Now, the context matters, right? Wagner is leaving. In its place comes the Africa Corps, representing sort of the Russian military. They're not mercenary this time, they're real military. That shift has everyone in the region on edge. For the Tuareg, Wagner may have been brutal and unpredictable, but there is certainly recognition that the replacement force could be or will be better trained, better organized, more disciplined, more tightly controlled, and it will have the legitimacy of having a major state behind it, of coming from a major state. Eventually, that makes it more dangerous, of course, and that's the concern, and that's probably why Intala reached out to the other side. Now, for jihadist group operating in the region, GSIM, this is a moment of leverage. They're still fighting the state, but now they've got Tuareg commanders speaking to them, and not at them. It doesn't mean things are aligning, but future cooperation could give them a certain sense of legitimacy, including among the populations. At the end, though, what's clear is that Wagner's exit doesn't mean Russia is stepping away. It's just adjusting how it shows up, right? For Mali, that may change the structure of its military partnerships, but broader strategy appears largely unchanged. Stay the course and rely on Moscow to keep providing what Bamako sees as essential support in its never-ending fight against the jihadists, against the Tuaregs, against the Fulanis, against every other ethnic group in the country. With that summary, thank you for listening, and until our next talk, thanks and goodbye.